Hey folks, and welcome back to Drinks with Dave, and today we're gonna make a cocktail that is a little obscure, and it's called the Oldest Living Confederate Widow. Now this drink is a modern riff on an old classic, and it incorporates a few extra ingredients. One of them is absinthe, which is one of my favorite things in the world. God, I love absinthe. And if you're intimidated by absinthe, rest assured that this particular cocktail is well balanced, and I think you're gonna enjoy it. Now, let's go build the Oldest Living Confederate Widow. Okay, so the history on the Oldest Living Confederate Widow is pretty cut and dry. It was actually created in Chicago, Illinois at a very popular bar called the Violet Hour by then mixologist Toby Maloney. Now, I'm not exactly sure when the cocktail was created, but my best guess is it was somewhere between 2010 and 2015. I could be wrong, so if you do happen to know, please just let me know down in the comments. Now, what is obvious is the name of the cocktail. It seems to have been named after the 1989 Allen Gurganus novel, The Oldest Living Confederate Widow. Apparently, it was a New York Times bestseller and considered an instant classic, but it's not my cup of tea, so I haven't read it, and that's as far as I'll go with all of that. So back to the cocktail. Now, even though the cocktail is not as old as the name suggests, it is actually a riff on a much older drink called the Bee's Knees, which dates back to 1921. In fact, it's so similar, it's essentially the same drink with the addition of a few dashes of two other ingredients. Now, I love the Bee's Knees. It's one of my favorite cocktails. It's super versatile. There's so many different ways you can approach it, but I think it's pretty cool that just a small addition of only two ingredients can take a cocktail like the Bee's Knees and transform it into something completely different and equally as delicious, if not better. It could be better. It might be better. Something about the way these ingredients work together. Speaking of ingredients, let's go ahead and dig into what we're going to use to make the Oldest Living Confederate Widow. All right, for this cocktail, we're going to be using gin, honey syrup, fresh lemon juice, and these right here are the basic ingredients to a Bee's Knees, like I talked about earlier. The only difference with this cocktail is we're going to be adding in orange bitters and absinthe. Okay, so the gin I'm going to be using today is Bombay London Dry Gin. I feel like this is a great gin for this drink. You could use anything you want. I personally would stay away from something like Tanqueray for this cocktail, but that's my own personal taste. You go ahead and do you. And the honey syrup we're using today is a 1-to-1 ratio, honey to water. I have a video if you want to check that out. The lemon, of course, will be fresh squeezed. For the bitters, I'm using Angostura orange bitters. And for the absinthe, we'll be using Lucid. It's one of my favorite absinthes to use in cocktails. I think they make a great product, and the anise just pops. And now that we have our ingredients done, let's go ahead and build this drink. Okay, to get started making the Oldest Living Confederate Widow, start with your mixing tin. And we're going to add 2 ounces of our Bombay gin. I think this is a great sort of universal use gin. And then 1¼ ounces of our honey syrup. Next, we're going to half our lemon so we can squeeze in some fresh juice. And we're going to squeeze in 1 ounce of the fresh lemon juice. Now, at this point, we've actually just made a Bee's Knees cocktail. We could stop right here and it would be a delicious drink. But as I said, this is a riff on that, so we're going to go ahead and add our next ingredient, and that is orange bitters. And we're going to add 2 dashes to the tin. Now, we still have another ingredient to add, which is the absinthe. But we're not going to add that directly to the tin. I actually have a spritzer right here, and we're just going to spritz that into the glass before we pour the drink into it. So we'll just go ahead and add our ice and give it the old shakeroo. You're going to want to shake this for about 20 to 30 seconds. And once it's nice and ice cold, we're going to grab ourselves our glass. I've kept one of these in the freezer, just ready to make this drink. And this is where we add our absinthe. So we're just going to spritz in, I'd say about 7 spritzes. What the hell, 8. Once your absinthe's in, we'll just strain off the cocktail. Now it's gonna look pretty yellow. It's gonna look a lot like a Bee's Knees, but it isn't gonna taste that way. And for a garnish, you could use a lemon peel, but I actually like to use an orange peel for this one. Express a little oil over the rim and give it the garnish. And that is the Oldest Living Confederate Widow. Cheers. It's light and bright. The citrus and the honey work together, very balanced. You get the gin on the back end, and then again, the absinthe sort of pops with a little bit of that anise afterward. And I've served this to people behind the bar that absolutely hate absinthe, and they're like, I love that drink. I mean, you can't argue with that. Anyway, that's all I got today for you guys. Oh, and if you like what you saw today, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, or even the notification bell if you want to know when I come out with new videos. I'm going to try to make sure I get one out at least once a week. I want to give a big thank you to all my Patreon supporters, as always, and a very special shout out to my big investors, Stan, Lori, Kathy, Kate, and Pat. You guys are the best. Cheers.